Welcome to IDI's in-depth video on intumescent coatings and spray foam. I like to call it spray foam, torches, and fireworks.
Let's light a fire. Let's light a fire.
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, what this video is about is going into the why, the where, the when, and the how of installing intumescent coatings, the opportunity, and the ability to install it properly and profitably. So, with that being said...
Well, you want to learn something?
Yes, I do.
Me too. So let's start with the why. Now, we could start with the parental answer, because the code says so.
Because I said so!
Well, let's start with the fact that foam is combustible. So are a lot of other building materials. In fact, obviously, if I put this torch to this wood, you can see where I was doing it earlier, it's going to light on fire. It is combustible. But what about the foams? Well, the code sees all foams the same, but there's really two types, and you need to know the difference. There are thermal forms and thermal sets. These are thermal forms, and then your thermal sets, which are going to be more of a polyiso base. So let's take a look at those before we talk about the code. Wow. Well, there's obviously a lot of smoke, but what I want you to notice is that this foam does not go away. While there's a lot of smoke, it only shrinks and chars. There's a big difference between foams. When we go from a thermal set to a thermal form, what you're going to see is not only does it catch fire, but it will actually drip and rain fire. So it will take fire from one location to another. Same thing when we go over here. Thermal form products burn much differently, and they tend to drip and rain fire, or propagate fire is the term for it. So even though spray foam has a lot of flame retardants and properties built into it to make it a viable building material, the code requires a thermal barrier between people and foam, or where there's storage. It's a life safety issue. Check out these uncoated and coated foams next to each other, and you'll see why this is part of the code. So a lot of people ask, why attics and crawl spaces? Well, where do people store their stuff? Where do they keep their Christmas ornaments? Where would kids go to play with fireworks or with matches?
What do you like to do?
I don't know. Burn stuff.
So what about drop ceilings or tongue and groove ceilings? Most of those are not thermal barrier compliant. And if you just look at this video of a closed bedroom door, think of ceiling tiles, the smoke's going to come right through, so will the heat. You're going to have issues with that.
What about a shop?
Yes.
What about a shed?
Yes.
What about a parking garage?
Yes.
What about a warehouse?
Yes, parking garages, shops, barns, anywhere you're going to have storage or auxiliary space, the code is clear. You have to separate foam with a thermal barrier from people, a 15-minute thermal barrier. Now this, when coated with DC 315, is called an alternate method.
Okay, no problem.
That brings us to intumescent coatings. These are coatings that expand or swell as they heat, pushing the flame away from the surface, which is where the fire is getting its fuel. So they give us protection.
I need some protection.
Think of like the snakes on 4th of July, the little pellets that you light and they grow. Same kind of thing, only a little different. So when we talk about intumescent coatings, we're talking about DC 315. Now this comes in several colors. You'll notice on this bucket here, I've got the black lettering, that's going to be the black intumescent coating. Here I've got the ice gray lettering for the ice gray coating, and then I've got the green for the white. Anyway, so it does come in different colors. That's going to give us some options for people, black being the most popular, and then white really for storage spaces, places where you really need some light so you can see. Black more for the top of restaurants and places where you don't want to see.
Buddy deal? What's your favorite color?
Speaking of colors, you can tint the product, but it's not going to be enough to really change it. You are only allowed to add 1 ounce of colorant per gallon of product. That may sound like a lot, but 5 ounces of tint really won't change much. And we're going to show you that when we talk about how to mix the product. So before we get to that, let's start with storage and temperature. These buckets need to be kept over 70 degrees. And certainly you could store it at less than that, but if this bucket isn't 70 degrees or warmer, it's going to be extremely thick when you go to spray it. It can handle freezing, but you don't want to be doing that. In fact, any kind of freeze-thaw cycle is going to be more like this. We take this piece of celery, and certainly it's in great shape right now. But if we freeze-thawed this a couple of times, what's it going to look like? This thing was fine prior to putting it in the freezer. Now that does not look real edible. You could probably tie it into a pretzel or something like that. So remember, store it above freezing. You don't want it getting cold. Keep it warm, especially when you're going to use it. And if you do happen to have it where, say, a lid's come off or something like that, and it's dried out, or you've lost some water in it over time, you can fill it up on a new bucket to 3 inches from the top, but you do not want to dilute this product. It won't work the same. It's not tested to do that, and we're not supposed to be adding water to it.
What else you got?
This coating is actually scrubbable, ductile, and approved for incidental food contact.
Wait, what?
What do I mean by scrubbable? I'm going to take this Sharpie. This is what I would call a non-scrubbable interior paint. It's a cheap paint. This is the DC315. So here you can see the 2 X's, and what we're going to do, in fact, we'll just kind of double up on the X over here just to make it a little harder to get off. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll just kind of get these a little bit wet. Then we're going to spray some cleaner on them. And let's try getting that X off. Okay, so that didn't work so well.
Come on, scrub.
Let's try getting the X off the DC315. Little bit left because we went twice. Not bad. So it is scrubbable. A lot of restaurants do use this type of a coating. What I mean by ductile simply means that it will flex. Flexible. It will move. Now you're not going to take a wall and bend it like that, but it will flex without the paint flaking off. And as far as approved for incidental food contact, that just means obviously what it says. We can use it in a food-safe environment.
Got it.
Before we spray, we need to mix this bucket. This bucket is really thick when you get it. In fact, when you first open this bucket, it is at 14,000 centipoise. If you will paddle mix that, I'm not talking the little bitty paint spindle or a little bitty paint mixer. I mean when we take a serious paint mixer or a drywall paddle like they use on drywall mud, and we use that to mix this bucket. If we go 5 full minutes,
5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
that makes it so much easier to spray. But before we start mixing this, I also want to show you how much you can tint it. I mentioned tinting before. You can use 5 ounces for a 5-gallon bucket. You can use 1 ounce per gallon. We're going to go ahead and dump in the whole 5 ounces. There is so much white titanium dioxide already in this bucket that this 5 ounces of coloring isn't going to do a whole lot to change the color of the bucket. And we're going to go 5 minutes.
I know how to speed things up.
So as you can see, not only does it take a long time for the bucket to mix, but it took that long for even the colorant to make it through. But take a look at this color. That is not a very dark blue. Certainly it looks nice, but it's not very dark. Nice part is now we have our own custom color to play with, so we're going to do some other experiments. I want to show you how to check mill thickness when you put the product on. So we're just going to use it with a roller this time, and we'll check the mill thickness when we use the sprayer too. But as you can tell, this is a very thick product. So as we go to put this on, the question is, what really is 14 mils wet? Knowing that the average paint is going to go on about 4 mils wet, when should we stop applying this? Well, we're going to look at that right now. So I've got a very heavy application here, medium, and kind of a light. Let's take a look and see which one it is. So what I'm looking for, I have a mill gauge here, and I can get these from Paint to Protect for DC315. I can get mill gauges a lot of places. But what I want to do is just put this inside here, and I want to see on the back of my hand, that is way too thick. So I'm going to wipe that off. We'll get over here where it's a little lighter and see if we actually have it. We still have it. There we go. So right in between there, once I pick up that 14, right there, that's the dot I'm looking for. It's about this thickness here, so this is way too thick. The issue is I can put it on real thick and it still won't sag down the wall, and I've used way too much. I want to be checking my mill thickness and back rolling the part that I've oversprayed. Once I get spraying it at 14 mils wet, which is where most of our foams are going to come in, meaning the ones that IDI sells, that gives me the dry film thickness I need in order to meet the code. Great, so speaking of code compliance, if there is no storage, then you're going to use an ignition barrier over the foam, or use a foam that is ignition barrier compliant. And there is a lot of those. But either way, the authority having jurisdiction, the code official, the government official, someone is going to want to know that what you're using is compliant with the code. So all foams go through a whole lot of testing, and those reports are easy to come by. You can go online and get an ESR, which is an evaluation services report, or a CCRR, a code compliance research report, an IAPMO report. But either way, they're going to want to see that report.
He's got documentation.
The next thing is, you want to make sure you're putting tabs up on the wall, something that you spray over to show them your work, to prove that what you did was done correctly. So before we start spraying, you've got to make sure you've got the right PPE. We need to be protected. That means our eyes, our nose, our skin. So obviously we need to be wearing goggles or safety glasses. You need a mask with a filter, and you need gloves for sure. That brings us to application and equipment. We can't just use an off-the-shelf, out-of-the-box store sprayer. I know they've got some that look big, but what we're talking about here, we need a sprayer that'll do 3/4 of a gallon per minute or even a gallon per minute. We're starting with the Graco Mark V. This is a much larger sprayer, and in this case,
Bigger is better.
bigger is better. With a 3/4 gallon per minute sprayer at 3000 PSI, I can use a 517 tip. If I go to a 1 gallon per minute sprayer, I can go to a 521 tip. So here's a picture of the Mark V we used for the video. This product is thick, 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 so you can't use small hoses. What you don't want to do is downsize the hose going towards the gun. What's better is to keep the size hose that came with the machine going to the gun and use a larger hose back towards the machine so that you can carry that volume and that pressure all the way out to the end of the gun. You also don't want to have a filter in the gun. There's guns they make that you can't put a filter into, but if you've got a gun with a filter, be sure to take that out. So the first step in the process is make sure you've got clean lines for the sprayer. If you've used it before, you need to flush the lines when you put it away. When you start again, you're going to get the water out of the line. Use a 5 gallon bucket. Make sure that paint comes all the way through and that it's spraying out nicely. You don't want to go to the foam with something watery. So when you've got a good stream of paint coming out, it's time to start. The next big thing we have to address is ventilation. For one, you need to be ventilating during the spray foam process. All of the amines and the off-gassing that happens while you're spraying foam needs to leave. But also you need to ventilate for the paint to dry out. Think about it, you just sealed this building. I know it's latex paint, but if they come back, what do you think they're going to think they smell when they walk in the house? Do you really think that's what they're going to believe it is?
What does that smell? Do you smell that?
So my next question is, what do you think gets rid of smells?
I'll alert my attorney.
That's right, lawyers. So again, be sure to ventilate. While you're spraying, make sure your tabs are already up on the wall. Make sure you're the right distance from the wall. You want a good spray technique. The gun should be straight to the wall. You want your hand perpendicular to the wall so that you're not going up or down and cascading paint all over the place. The product obviously is not inexpensive, so you want to make sure you're doing that. But also you don't want to spray the product too thick. We did it here where you can see it. You just want to make sure you get the right amount on. The next thing is, don't let it get cold. When you are done spraying, if it's wintertime, they need to keep the heat on. That building needs to be conditioned. Part of the problem with freezing is acrylic paints dry from the top down. So if what I've got on that paint that's facing the atmosphere dries and that skin's over, the water beneath that is going to build up ice crystals between the coating and the surface of the foam, and that's going to push the foam off. And you're going to start seeing things like alligatoring, delamination. You don't want the paint falling off. If you put it on too thick, you could get mud cracking, and that's going to create other problems. So the coverage rate over most foams is 115 square feet per gallon. But remember, if we're talking open cell, the product goes like this. So you've got to adjust your coverage rate for the surface of the foam. You don't want to be underbidding and then having to go back and do more. So be creative and be artistic. Some of the things to watch out for, definitely no dirty surfaces. If your foam is shiny because someone's gun was far away from the wall or they were trying to make a super flat surface, you can flash that over. You can use a primer if you need to. But don't let it freeze, watch out for glossy surfaces, and make sure it's clean. As far as top coats, the Intumescent coating needs the ability to expand, so you want to use an inexpensive paint to go over the top. And check out the way the product expands. We also did it on cardboard. Then we even went back, knocked off some of the char, and it expanded again. This product really works. And as promised, we even lit up some fireworks and pointed them at the foam so you can see that. They were a lot stronger than our torch. So remember, this product does expand. That also means it's not a perfect top coat. So there are situations where you're going to need a top coat. We start looking at food storage, freezers, swimming pools, places like that. Just work with your top coat manufacturer wherever you go to buy that, and they'll be able to tell you what's going to work best with this product. So be sure to be able to prove your work. You want a job label that you can post on the job site. You want a job site report. You want to be able to prove the buckets that were used there. You've got the tabs from the wall. Absolutely, a not for storage sticker is a big deal. If you're not putting an Intumescent coating over your foam, you want to have a not for storage sticker. And also, if you get asked about the life of the product, they have done accelerated aging or testing on the product for up to 50 years. That is substantial. And lastly, you really should be certified.
You're certified, right? Let's get you certified.
Definitely. You should be certified. And there's a certified applicator course online. Takes about 45 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. We really hope this video helps you profit more, gives you comfort with the DC315 or the Intumescent products, the ability to go out and sell them. It's much more than a compliance issue. It is absolutely an opportunity for profit. Thanks again for watching, and we look forward to earning your business every day.